It's hard to believe we are already on episode 20 of the Landing Zone podcast. I envisioned this podcast when I started my new role at UPS, overseeing military veteran talent acquisition strategy as a forum to help service members, veterans, and military spouses find their next career by providing them with advice, resources, and motivational stories. And it's been really cool to see this forum come to reality. I'm excited to feature Richard Comitz, Chief Operating Officer at American Corporate Partners, in this episode, as I've been a huge supporter of ACP for many years. I've been volunteering with them since 2012. Rich is the COO at American Corporate Partners. He is the senior leader overseeing corporate relations, outreach, and communications of the team who assists veterans, transitioning service members, and their spouses prepare for a meaningful career after military service. Lieutenant Colonel retired Rich Comitz received a commission in the Army Chemical Corps as a graduate of the United States Military Academy, West Point. He held multiple positions with the Army, ranging from platoon leader, executive officer, and brigade chemical officer, stability transition team executive officer, as well as commander of headquarters and headquarters company, 2nd Brigade, 1st Infantry Division, and deployed to Kosovo and Iraq. He holds a PhD in organic chemistry from the Florida Institute of Technology and served as an associate professor at the United States Military Academy. Prior to ACP and after retiring from the Army, he was director of operations at Long Island University. Rich, welcome to the Landing Zone.
Lloyd, thanks so much for having me here, and I'm so proud to be your 20th guest, and the fact that congratulations on doing 20. It's been really great to see this podcast grow.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Hey, can you let our listeners know where you're originally from?
So I'm originally from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, which is near Scranton, which most people know from The Office.
Yeah, I love The Office. So, in that part of the country, Eagles or Steelers?
Eagles.
Yeah, Eagles. So things are looking up for the Eagles. So that's good. Hey, you went to West Point. So one of the amazing things I get to do is sit on the Military Academy Nomination Advisory Board for U.S. Navy veteran Congressman Andrew Clyde. Hey, can you take us through your selection into West Point? How did that occur?
Yeah, so I was in high school looking for ways to pay for college and came across West Point and realized that it's something that I'd be interested in doing. It's definitely not an easy route to apply for an academy because it's a little bit more than just the average sending in your application and test scores. You have to get a nomination from either a member of Congress, a senator, and there's a special population that can get it from the vice president. So, as part of the application process, you have to talk with the senator or congressman, as I mentioned. So I was able to, the way it went for me, and I would assume it's different everywhere, but I had to inform the congressman that I was interested in going to an academy and kind of get on their list. And then they went and set up interviews. And so I had to interview with the congressman. And lucky for me, he a few weeks later, his office called me and said that they would be honored to extend an invitation for me or sponsorship for a nomination for an academy. And I believe that they can still nominate, I think, 10 people for every slot that they're allowed. So it's still another kind of cut that you have to make before you get there. So it's a pretty rigorous process, but it definitely was well worth it.
Yeah, I went in for the last 3 years. Thanks, Congressman Clyde, if you're listening. I've been a part of that board. And I think this last year we had about 30 applicants, and we gave nominations to roughly 22, and only 5 were selected. And I can tell you the 20 of those applicants were amazed, and they get selected. If they don't make the academy, a lot of them get selected for their next choice, which is MIT and Harvard and Princeton and Georgia Tech and Emory. So it's pretty amazing. So kudos for you. So now let's turn on to your showing up at West Point. Was that a huge culture shock, especially for your time as a plebe?
Yeah, so for me, and you know, I've talked about this a little bit, but I don't have a military history in my family, so I didn't really know what I was getting into. To be honest with you, my reasoning for applying to the academy was truly to supplement the income that would be needed to pay for a college degree. So I went there essentially because it was free. So not really knowing what I was doing, and the only thing that some advice that I got was to get in shape before I went there. I played sports throughout high school, and so even towards the end of my high school career when I wasn't doing any sports, I did things like running and working out in order to do that. Because if you show up and you're falling out of runs, that's just another stressor, right? So that was good advice. So I was in pretty good shape, so that wasn't a problem. But yeah, I mean it's definitely not. And I imagine for kids these days, it's even more of a culture shock. Well, back when I was going to college, there was no cell phones, so that wasn't an issue. I can't imagine, prying a cell phone out of a teenager's hand for several weeks while they're, going through the kind of basic training that is the summer training for these academies. And they're all a little bit different, but they essentially get you up early, make you do physical fitness and other things that you've probably never done in your life. So oftentimes you're getting yelled at for not doing it right, and you feel kind of like I don't say a failure, but you also kind of get put in your place a little bit humbled, I guess I would say, because everybody there is top of their class and captain of the team and all that stuff, and then you're and they're just as good, if not better, than you. So you really have to work hard just to kind of maintain. And so yeah, there was probably, I don't know if my mother saved any of the letters, but probably the letters I wrote home were probably pretty weak when it comes to my spirits, I guess. But it was worth making my way through.
Yeah, I think it's pretty neat. I love your comments about you're not going to be first. You've been first your whole life, and hey, somebody's got to be 500th, right? And so the one of my favorite leaders, U.S. Ulysses S. Grant's, he finished at the bottom of his class at the West Point, and look what he turned out to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great people there, and I when I taught there, I had students that, some of them were getting B's for the first time in their life, and that was like a big thing for them. So, the worst thing that happened to you is the worst thing that happened to you. So, for some of them, there was a lot of adjusting, and I think it really teaches you some resilience, and how to continue to thrive even under tougher conditions.
So, turning to your time as after you commissioned, I was reviewing your LinkedIn profile and noticed you had some really good assignments, with the exception of Fort Polk, which I jokingly say the Army has recently renamed to Fort Johnson, so troops can't figure out where they're actually being sent to. And I ran into doing a Google search because that's what I do, a Fort Polk, which provides some ominous results if you do that, with the exception of a realtor who wrote an article some years ago titled Six Reasons Why Fort Polk, Louisiana is a Great Place to Live, which I think is just hilarious. So I got to ask you, how was that assignment?
Well, I'll tell you that I'll start off by saying I always tried to make the best out of whatever situation I was in. It was somewhat exciting for me because I was sent there to activate a new unit in the army. So it was a first of its kind unit, and so that part, the work was exciting. It is pretty much in the middle of nowhere, so um, if you like hunting and fishing, it's not a bad place. But what I tried to do while I was there in my free time, when I had free time, was go travel. It's not a long distance from uh, New Orleans, not far from Mississippi, Texas, and so there's a little bit of a few day trips you can do that you get to see different parts of the country you wouldn't have been able to see.
When you left Fort Polk, you had assignments to Würzburg and Schweinfurt, Germany, and then West Point. So three amazing places. Which one was your favorite?
Yeah, it's hard to choose a favorite. I would say being in Germany, I probably would have never been an international traveler if I hadn't been in the military. So I learned a lot. I appreciated a lot of different cultures while I was there in Germany. So and for those of you that haven't looked at Germany on a map, it's really about a third the size of Texas. So you could literally travel in 2 hours in any direction. You're probably in a new country. So that was pretty exciting to me too. Was again in my free time, I was able to visit different countries, learn different things about cultures. I think that's important to understand because sometimes people get caught up in their own little kind of sphere and you don't realize how people are living otherwise and the similarities and differences. So I do appreciate my time overseas there. The other thing about Germany was kind of, I would say, intense, but we felt like we were the kind of the tip of the spear when we were stationed there. So normally, because of Germany being in Europe, that's closer to where there might be conflict. So while there, I went to Kosovo, so that wasn't again another exciting and interesting deployment. And then you talk about West Point. So as a cadet, and I don't know about everybody, but when I left West Point, I thought I'll never come back because it was a tough 4 years, and so I didn't have super high fond memories when I was leaving. But then when I got approached to come back and teach there, I really enjoyed the interaction with the cadets, being able to kind of not only teach them the subject matter, but talk to them about what it's like to be in the Army, help them go through their decision making for what they're going to do for the rest of their life, or at least the next few years of their life, and give them as much input that I could to help them make the right decisions for them. And so I really enjoyed West Point.
So let's talk a little bit about your transition now. You had a pretty cool Army career culminating in the assignment at West Point. So talk a little bit about what it was like to leave something you had done for a very long time in a whole new foray.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think it's very hard to explain the feeling to someone that hasn't been through it of you've been doing the same type, the Army, there's a lot of different things, but in general, the culture, the people, there's a lot of things that are the same wherever you're at. And so that it's very hard to completely leave what you've known the whole time and try something new. The other thing is the Army's a big place, but the civilian world's even bigger. So um, it's really challenging, or it was challenging for me, to tell you the truth, to know what I wanted to do, where I wanted to do it, and if I could do it. There's a lot of people that'll tell you you can do this, you can do that, but then convincing a hiring manager that you're the right person for that job is tough. And so honestly, I feel like I took the easy route for me in that I went to the academic world because I had just been serving at West Point, so it seemed like an easy transition. Although um, the jobs I applied to, I was not getting too many interviews, and I think it was very hard for the academic world to understand what to do with 23 years of service, even though about 9 of them were teaching in a college environment. So I had a hard time actually getting placement, but I had to take kind of a step down to get a position at a university, and then once I got there, I was able to kind of raise up pretty fast.
Yeah, great story. A lot of veterans sometimes have trouble convincing those hiring managers, actually convincing the gatekeepers, to let them through to the hiring managers by translating their skills and experience. So you left academia and ended up at American Corporate Partners. How did that transition happen?
Yeah, so ever since I left the military, I had this kind of still this strong affinity for the military, kind of a desire to serve. I tried to uh, volunteer at the VA and things like that to stay connected, although COVID happened, so it was very hard to do that. Um, I was doing a lot of things at the university. I've got tasks. I continue to get more and more responsibility, never letting go of the previous responsibilities. So I had, what felt to me like amounted to three or four people's jobs by the time I ended up where I was at. And at that point, what I thought I was lacking when I left the military, which was that civilian experience, I felt, well, now I have that experience. So maybe I should see what else is out there and see if I can, really fill the position in which I think that I could. So I just started casually looking. Luckily for me, American Corporate Partners was looking for some senior management, and I threw my resume in and got to start talking to people at the organization and really love what they do. And so lucky for me, they brought me on.
Yeah, very cool. It's a great organization. So I've been a part of it now for a really long time, for a decade and a half. Can you let our viewers know a little bit about the mission of ACP?
Sure. So at the heart, what we're trying to do is help prepare transitioning service members and active duty spouses get ready for their transition to a new job outside of the military. So we like to say meaningful employment. Um, and we do that through mentorship. And so, what our organization does is takes the call, and processes the person, that the veteran or spouse we call proteges, and we understand what their goals are, what they're interested in doing, and then we go into our mentor pool and try to find a mentor that can help them meet those goals. Oftentimes it's through the same experiences or the same industry in which, so if you want to go into IT, we try to find someone that has IT experience so they can really tell you what it's like, how to translate some of your military skills to what a hiring manager in that area might be more appealing to them, and help you with resume and just other things, talking through different courses of actions, really to help people find the right job at the right level, at the right company, in the right environment, so that uh, they're happy there and they stay there for a long period of time rather than having to jump from job to job because they're just taking jobs and not really considering all those things.
Yeah, ACP is absolutely wonderful, and they're one of the two organizations that every time a veteran comes to me, they're a transitioning service member. So I have them go to ACP for that mentorship and Hire Heroes USA for a free competitive resume. So veterans or service members are leaving the military with a ton of leadership experience, operations experience, degrees, leadership and management training, but oftentimes they just need some assistance, some guidance, and that's why I love ACP because um, I'm a great example. I I was an Army brat. I had one sort of job for about 3 months before I joined the Air Force at age 17. Spent 20 years in the Air Force. Had never written a resume. Never really did a real job interview. I didn't know where to, triangulate my starting points. And I was able to figure it out through lots of reading GI Jobs magazine at the time. And this was pre ACP because I retired in 2007. So I think now there's opportunities for this mentorship. You guys are helping tens of thousands of service members, veterans, and spouses. So kudos to you. So, what's one of your favorite ACP success stories?
Yeah, I mean, I hear a lot of great stories here, and I'll tell you some, at least far as categories of stories, and then get into maybe one or two specifics. But the categories that are exciting or amazing to me is how far a mentor will go to help their protege. So, for example, people will refer them for jobs within their company. People will organize. I've seen people organize tours of facilities. So, someone's interested in. It was a person was with a Coca-Cola mentor, I believe, and Coca-Cola does more than Coca-Cola. There's a bunch of different manufacturing areas that this person, he was even kind of towards the end of COVID, organized for them to go to these different locations while they were kind of on a road trip anyway, and called those places, got a person to personally walk them through and give them tours so they can get a better understanding what that job might look like. So those type of stories actually happen a lot, and it's pretty amazing to see. Um, I'll sit in on meetings with companies that with all their mentors, and they'll start talking about their mentors almost like they're an agent, right? Trying to like, hey, I really need somebody that knows something about this to help them out, or does anybody have a connection here because my guy wants to do this? So it's really great to hear how dedicated the mentors are. Um, but on the flip side, proteges are coming to us from all different walks of life. I mean, the military is a slice of our society. People have different experiences. We have people that come out after 3 or 4 years of enlistment who are straight out of high school, so they're maybe 22, 23 without a college degree, and they're just trying to figure out what do I want to do with my life. We have general officers that have spent 30 plus years, that still want to figure out what they want to do with their life, and everywhere in between. And so it's pretty amazing to see those connections. And so with that, not only do we have different ranks and experience, but um, people have different life stories, right? And one particular story we recently got, and we didn't get this until after the person had already gotten kind of done at their mentorship, but he wrote and told one of our staff members, when I first joined ACP, I was living out of the bed of my truck. I was eating MREs that I had stashed from when I was in the service. I was physically out of shape, which, military people know that they should be, taking care of themselves. And but he just couldn't do it. And I didn't have a job. I was just really down on my luck, and I was in a bad place. Now, fast forward, this is the end of his mentorship. He got to talk to someone that in the cybersecurity area, and that's what area he wanted to get into. He was able to obtain a job at Leidos in the cybersecurity realm. And when he wrote to us, he was signing for the keys for his first apartment. So you can, I mean, such a heartwarming story, but you can imagine, so many military people that, you know, you could go in two different directions pretty fast when you leave the military. You could, start experiencing all those things that you kind of bottled up the whole time you were in the military. Get down on yourself. You could have depression. You could have PTS. You could just, you know, keep striking out, and that's a big blow to your ego, as far as jobs and all that stuff. And maybe you're living on your parents' couch or something like that. So you start drinking or something like that. You can go really down a bad road. And having a mentor just kind of checking in with you, keeping you on track, giving you those little steps to start moving towards the direction you want. Really, it's not a stretch for some people to say it saves their life, not only just changes their life. So again, I want to thank you for 15 mentorships. That's not only 15 people lives that you affected, but think about their families and the people that they're now working with that you've influenced. So thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Yeah, every one of mine have been vastly different. I've had a lot of fun with some of them. One of my favorite stories is Adnan Zeho, a U.S. Coast Guard veteran, came to a Vetlanta summit. At the Vetlanta summit, he met Chris Peck, who's now a retired vice president of HR at UPS and one of my best friends now, and was definitely my mentor and executive champion at UPS. So Chris introduced Adnan to American Corporate Partners, signed up. His timing was impeccable. Got assigned to me as a mentor. First thing I did was, and I normally do, is like, hey, this is not a hiring program. I'm here to serve as your mentorship. You're never going to come work for me. And then about 3 weeks later, I had a lunch meeting with Adnan, and his timing was impeccable because I had a job opening that opened up that he was excellent for. I was like, I want to hire you. And Adnan came into UPS. He did very very well at UPS and got promoted a couple times, and now works at Ream, and he is doing making more money than I'll ever make at Ream, and he's still in touch with him. Had lunch with him last week,
Mm.
and his company Ream has sponsored several of Atlanta summits, so that's pretty neat. And then the other one is Jerome, and Jerome will be on the American Corporate Partners panel discussion, which you're moderating. At the Military Influencers Conference here in a couple months in Atlanta, and that was a really good mentorship too, because Jerome listened to me at times, and he didn't listen to me at times. And one of the things I constantly talk about is culture, the importance of culture when making that decision. A company's culture should rank right up there with pay, benefits, and location and job title, and it often doesn't. And Jerome unfortunately ran into a couple cultural conflicts with some of the decisions he made, but he's doing really well now, and look forward to that panel discussion.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And again, everyone's different, like you said, and I do agree with you. Culture is one of those things that I think we don't think about right away because you don't have a choice in the military. The culture is the culture. But here in the civilian world, there are different cultures and different environments which help set those cultures, and there you definitely can make some informed decisions when you're making that transition.
I always thought or I always think it's fascinating because every one of our branches of service has a really strong, identifiable culture, and it's especially like the Marine Corps. It's like all about the culture, and then when we go transition, we don't consider it.
Yeah, you're right.
And then if you're going to work for an organization where their culture doesn't align with your values, it doesn't matter how much money they pay you, you're going to be miserable and you're likely going to leave.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that now. You provided some great advice on making the transition. What advice can you offer to a service member, veteran, spouse that's now at a company? They've been hired for their next career, and they're within their first 30 days in the new job.
Yeah, I think this is key because most of us are very goal oriented, right? So the goal when you're transitioning is to get the job, and now you have the job, and you haven't thought past that, right? And I'm not saying that everyone has to think through a path to be the CEO of a company or something, but you should have an idea of where you want to be in 5 years. Um, Hopefully, it's at that same company, and if you are at that company for 5 years, is there possibilities to move around? So I think the first thing that I would say is, and this is what advice I was given when I was a new second lieutenant too, from my NCOs, is uh, observe, go out, go in and pay attention to what's going on. Try to understand, not only the culture but how things work, who kind of is in charge of what things and influences different ways, and start by observing, right? And then after you do that, then obviously you can do this at the same time, but you start talking to people, and not only people in your particular office next to you, but start getting to understand people outside of your small sphere wherever you're working, to understand more about the company. And a great place to do that, and a lot of organizations have gone to this, and I think you had set up one of the first ever maybe resource groups there at UPS, where you get, this is where a bunch of people can share some thoughts and do some things. Usually they're a bunch of different opportunities to either volunteer together, meet together, talk about things. And that could be, and so a lot of organizations have a veteran or a military support group in some way that is full of people that are not only veterans, but also people that are supporters of the military. And starting to talk to them about what they do in the company, just start getting more and more advice. And then you start getting, obviously, number one is to do your job and do it well. But then start talking about to your supervisors about what you're interested in and how you might be able to grow. I think those are
Yeah,
kind of the key
I
things.
can't even add anything to that. That's a series of great advice. So you work in New York City now. What's one of your favorite restaurants in the city?
Funny enough, I no, I don't go out much when I'm in the city. I kind of come in on the train, walk to my office. I'm cheap, so I can't. I would not eat out lunch every day here. I would be losing a lot of money. So I bring my lunch, and then I go home. But I have obviously visited for leisure with my wife and it's a tough question. I think one of the interesting ones, and I don't know if you want to call it favorite or not, but there's a place called Sans Gluten. So my wife tends to eat non-gluten or gluten-free type of foods if she can. This is a tremendous Italian place that doesn't have any gluten, which you wouldn't
Wow.
know it.
Yeah,
So
wow.
um, so I've had some really amazing dishes there and would have never known that they're gluten free. So I think that's a unique one that people can if they're looking for advice. I think that's a unique one. There's also an interesting kind of diner, the Stardust Diner, which is kind of a landmark in the theater, or yeah, the theater district here, where you're while you're eating kind of your diner food, there are people performing kind of Broadway songs throughout while you're eating, which is for the atmosphere, that one's pretty cool. The other one is kind of a unique twist on Italian food.
Very cool. So what do you like to do for fun, Rich?
I'm big on trying to stay young, I guess. So try to stay in shape. Spend a lot of time with my family, and although my kids are all about to go to college, have two dogs now, so my wife and I will try to go out and do something with the dogs on the weekends. We love to go out to eat. We love concerts. I've gone to a lot of concerts. I probably go to at least a dozen a year. So that's kind of a thing. Concerts, comedians, sometimes Broadway shows. Yeah.
Cool. What was one of the favorite concerts you've seen here lately?
Um, I'm a big fan of Zach Brown Band.
Okay.
They've had some pretty. I think I've seen them two or three times now, but every time they really bring it, and they change things up. They cover some songs that you would never have thought, and they're just really talented. So I love to watch them. I mean, and it's concerts another great thing where there's difference there, right? I've seen like Adele and Ed Sheeran where they essentially stand there and sing, and that's just as good as like a band that is kind of doing more dancing and moving around and all that type of stuff. So
Well, Zach Brown Band, I do appreciate. So they were one of the best bands I've seen in concert, and they're from where I live.
no,
So
perfect.
Forsyth County, Georgia. Actually, I just moved from Forsyth County down closer to the office here in Atlanta. So, well, great, Rich. We are out of time. Do you have any closing comments?
No, I mean, first of all, I just want to thank you for not only for obviously this opportunity to be on the podcast, but everything you've done for our community. You've been doing it for a lot longer than me, and everyone that I talk to knows who you are and speaks super favorably of you. So thanks for what you do for our community. I really appreciate it, and thanks for being such a strong advocate for ACP. I really appreciate it.
It's very kind there, Rich, of you to say that. And if I had $1 million, I would definitely be giving ACP a chunk of that a million because I really strongly believe in your mission, and I've seen the results. So it's really wonderful out there. So thank you for appearing on the Landing Zone. Looking forward to Military Influencers Conference, and we get to meet in person. So
Yeah,
that's
that'll
going
be
to
great.
for our viewers out there, please help us advertise this podcast on your social media accounts and in your networks. And make sure you check out ACP, either as a mentor or mentee. And as always, be safe, be kind, and be remarkable.